It is my pleasure. Thank you, all of you, for joining us online and in person. My pleasure to introduce Dr. Ed Kammerer, who is an associate professor of political science here at ISU, where he also serves as the chair of the General Education Requirements Council. Is that the new name?
Council. We were the General Education Requirements Committee, but now we're a council. So we're the once and former GERC.
Perfect. His research focuses on LGBTQ politics and political science pedagogy. He's the lead editor of the first book on teaching LGBTQ politics, published this summer with SUNY Press. He was recently selected as the first American Political Science Association Pedagogy Fellow for Inclusive Classrooms. And I will turn it over to Dr. Kammerer.
Hi, thank you all for coming. For the people that are here sitting around a conference table, I apologize. I have to stand when I teach. It's a weird thing that I can't sit. I feel very awkward. So I'm going to stand and flail about. And we'll go through. So, durable skills. Why are we here? I don't know. But the State Board of Education is deeply invested in durable skills. That's been their thing for a while now. They want all of the statewide general education, the GEM categories 1 through 6. They recently added to the policies that in addition to the core competencies, they all need to assess relevant durable skills, except for lab sciences. Lab sciences have to assess appropriate durable skills. I don't know what the word change means, but I don't know, that's all I got. But the state has given us no guidance on this. And beyond that, we should be thinking about this anyway. I had a student, one of my better students, come in last year, getting close to graduation, and was like, so what did I learn while I've been here? Because I think we're all teaching these skills, but we don't necessarily make the connections to the students and our learning outcomes as clear as we probably could. And so the students are often wondering, like, what am I leaving here with, especially if they're coming out of a liberal arts program like political science or history, where there's not necessarily a direct class to path to job path. Like if you're an accounting major, you become an accountant. If you're an engineering major, you become an engineer, right? That's pretty straightforward. My students are not going to become political scientists for the most part. But we're training them in things, and so what is that? And so we're gonna walk through a little bit about this, and then at the end, what I hope to do is first to look at our syllabi together and see where we're already teaching these skills and figure out how we can link those more directly to our learning outcomes. And how we can also think about where we can add in assessments for these durable skills if we're not already thinking about it. So, what is on my slides? So what are durable skills? That's a very good question. This is the best thing I could find, which is this lovely wheel. And on the wheel, there's 10 what they call core competencies. Each one of those has a bunch of sub things under it. I'm not going to worry about the really small print. We're just going to look at the big 10. And some of these I think are easier to assess than others. But these are things like leadership, character, collaboration, communication, creativity, critical thinking, metacognition, mindfulness, growth mindset, and fortitude. Do I know how to assess all of those? I do not. Do I even know what some of them are? More or less. Because I'm sitting here thinking, how do I assess fortitude in my students? Do I fail them first and see if they keep trying? I don't know. Like, what is fortitude? And there's actually some, if you've read the Idaho book, How Humans Learn, and there's a section on learning through failure. So maybe that's what we should be doing to get to the fortitude. I'm not sure. But these are the general durable skills that we're thinking about, especially from the GERC perspective. If you propose a new general education course this semester, you've seen this lovely chart where I ask you to tell me which ones you're assessing and how. So this is where that comes from. Why are these important? Because this is what employers want. So this is data from somewhere. I had it written down, but I don't have it in my brain right now. Looking at job postings. And assessing which of the durable skills are required. And as you can see, this national data, 48% of job postings required at least 3 of the durable skills that are listed on that wheel. So this is what employers are looking for. And the top 5 nationally, the top 5 durable skills were required almost 5 times more than the top 5 hard skills. So employers were really hoping that we can teach our students these skills, which again, I think we're already doing, but we're not always giving the students the language to say that they can do these things. You know, and I remember that from when I was an English major as an undergrad. Everybody was so, what's your job? Like, you want fries with that? I was like, no, we're actually learning things, a lot of things. But it's how do we communicate that to our students? And it's just the same for Idaho. So Idaho, the top 5 durable skills were requested 4 times more than the top 5 hard skills. 44% want at least 3 of the durable skills listed. So this is in our nationally and here in Idaho, where a lot of our students are going to probably stay. This is what employers want. Of course, some of us might ask, is this even our job, right? When you ask faculty, some faculty believe that these are skills that students should develop outside the classroom. My job is to teach content. My job is to teach political science. I will teach you what the Supreme Court does, what it's supposed to do, what it actually does, and you know, all of that stuff. I'm teaching Congress right now. It's been really easy because Congress isn't doing anything, so it makes my simulation really fast. So we're simulating this Congress, right? We don't have to do anything. We're on break. But others are that like support for durable skills in the classroom, even if faculty are not always sure how to do it. Us social science professors, humanities professors tend to be more keenly aware of this than I think, again, engineering and accounting, because they're like, I have to teach how to make sure buildings don't fall down if whatever engineering does that. Right? And then there's always the question, isn't this what student activities and internship before? Isn't that a better way to do this? Like I learned leadership because I was a club president, I was in student government when I was an undergrad. So that's where I developed my leadership skills, not necessarily in the classroom, right? Had I done internships, I might have learned things there, but I didn't. That's probably why I went to law school, because I had nothing else on my resume. We all make choices. But general education is actually, and again, maybe this is just because I'm the chair of GERC, but I think general education is really an important place for students to develop these skills, because a lot of these durable skills are foundations that they can build on later in their major. And several of our gen eds already speak specifically to the durable skills, right? Communication, we have 2 gen eds for that. Oral and written, right? Yay, check, we've got 1 done, right? Critical thinking, oh, that's number 7, check, right? Information literacy is 8. So we have some of these durable skills built in, right? I think we're doing the other ones too, but it's just a question of how we do it. That said, it can't be left solely to general education, right? When we think about where students spend most of their time, it's in their major. General education is a small portion, then they get their major, their electives, and at least with my students, often double majors and minors and pulling all these other certificates together. So how do we build this into the curriculum more appropriately? I really think I don't have any more slides because I really wanted to spend more time on the workshopping part. Okay, so this already. We're already doing this. How do we make it clear? How many of you have durable skills listed as a learning outcome on your syllabus for your classes? Can we articulate that as a goal for the class? I'm seeing none. Oh, I'm seeing 1 maybe? Yeah.
A little bit.
A little bit? Is it clear? Is it just kind of like you're reading into it because you know it's there?
So I have kind of more traditional course objectives and stuff, but what I have in addition is a 1-pager specifically on skills you'll learn.
Okay.
And that's just based on American Psychological Association has something called transferable skills, which is very similar, and they list.
Yeah, that was the old name.
Slightly different from the 10 here. I mean, some overlap.
Yeah.
And then, so I went to a workshop they did on that and kind of pulled from.
Yeah. No, that's great, because a lot of us, most of us don't have anything like that. You know, in political science, I say, I want you to think critically about the court, right? But I don't ever go to, I guess, as I say, that critical thinking is a durable and transferable skill that you can take with you off into your future career, right? So even when we do list it, it's not usually packaged in a way for students to see the connection to their jobs and to their goals down the line. So one of the goals I think for my workshop, the workshop portion of this, is for us to brainstorm how we can articulate these more clearly and tie them to specific things. And this is building on the transparency in learning and teaching the TILT framework that was a workshop a while back. Actually listing on the assignment which durable skills go to which learning outcome. Make it very clear for students that they're learning this. Right, when I joked a little bit about failing students so they can test their fortitude, but that's how I do con law. I tell them straight up, you're gonna fail the first brief. Everyone fails the first brief. That's just how it is. You don't know how to do this yet, it's hard, you're not gonna do it right. That's what we're here for. If you knew how to do it, you wouldn't need this class, right? So I tell them that this is to help them learn through by doing it wrong and improving. Do I necessarily say that we're developing your fortitude? No, maybe I should, right? But I think building in direct connections on assignments, like why do we have them write essays? I actually question this, so it's actually a question, I don't know. I'm trying to get away from that because my students will never write another 5-paragraph essay when they leave here, right? So can we do more concrete writing that still gets the same goals, tie that back to job skills? So I teach public policy classes, I have them do a policy brief. Right, and I don't, this is my own failures, like I don't articulate it as, you're gonna be able to think critically, this is how you think critically about a policy, communicate the important elements, tie this back to the job skills. Because students, as much as I would love it if they were all just here to read good books and be nerds like me, they want jobs, right? They're gonna go out into the real world. And so how do we do that? Okay, that's it for my slides. So I wanted us to have most of the, I did build this as a workshop, not necessarily a full presentation. So I want us to think about how we can do these things together. And I'm open to workshop formats. We can work in pairs. We can discuss more broadly. I don't know what's going to be most useful for people, but I want to think about, and this is also from Gert's perspective, I need to know how we're going to assess these. I don't know how to assess, okay, metacognition, have students reflect, write a reflection at the end of the semester on what you learned in your learning process. Great, metacognition, you're thinking about your learning. I'm doing that, and I did actually articulate that as a goal this semester in my critical race theory class. That is still somehow legal for me to teach. But when we think about how we can do this in other types of assessments, how do you assess fortitude? How do you assess that a student has improved or developed their fortitude? Right, and if we go back, I think my last slide was actually back to the wheel, so we can end with the wheel and see what we're trying to think about. Critical thinking, I think most of us know how to assess that, or at least we think we do. Maybe we're not always the best at it if we actually look objectively, but we can think through that. Creativity, that can be fun. Like I know one of my colleagues has a bonus points for his essay for academic creativity. Like if you try something bold, and it might not work, but you can still get bonus points for stretching your creative juices and thinking about how to answer a problem, right? Communication, collaboration, those are pretty easy. Anyone know how to assess character? So I don't know, so this was my goal was to have us generate ideas together and think through. That's why I wanted you to bring a syllabus so we can think about how we do this together. Because I have thoughts, I have ideas, but I don't have all the answers because they don't teach us this, and I've done a ton of reading on this, and everybody's like, faculty do this, but they don't tell you how. And nothing I could find is really clear on the assessment part of it, right? I mean, most faculty are terrible at assessment anyway, as we've learned through the assessment review process here in Kirk. We're looking at these assessment plans. Most of us don't know what we're doing with assessment. And so how do we do adding in not just assessing course content, but skills? So that is my incredibly short presentation.
Okay, so a couple questions.
Yes.
So one is, so with gen ed objectives, obviously, once the student has achieved their mental objectives, they've done the full kind of coverage, one class next to cover every single gen ed objective, right?
Yes.
So for durable skills, what kind of coverage, what percentage of durable skills should, maybe we don't have to all between character.
No, and that's true. Not every course is going to hit all 10 of these. And that's not expected. What we want is at least when the students leave here, that they have some package of durable skills that they can pull together and say, I know how to do a thing, like that you want as an employer, right? And for gen ed, I think that's partially why, if I'm gonna give the State Board of Education a little credit for forethought, that's one, which is debatable, but I think that's why they did the relevant durable skills, right? So you get to determine which skills are relevant for a humanities gen ed, or for a social science gen ed, or for math, right? Math, I think they should be doing more communication, because communication in math and science is really hard. I had a lot of science friends when I was an undergrad, a lot of engineers that I hung out with for reasons that are beyond my comprehension, but they were not great at communicating. You know, I took a gen ed actually with one of my best friends who was a civil engineering major, and just watching him struggle to write papers. He's like, what's that like? What do I do? And I was like, oh, just do it. And I'm just sitting there, la 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 la, the day before the paper's due. And he's like, 2 weeks ahead, he's like, what are you doing for your paper? I was like, we have a paper due? Because I was in panic mode, but we did it was 2 weeks away, so I didn't even on my paper. But I just can do that, right? Where they have a different set of skills. So I don't know.
All right, good question. And so you talked earlier about some of these durable skills seem to align really nicely with gen ed objectives. And so is there any thought about sort of like maybe pegging some of these to like specific gen ed objectives, or like definitely metacognition needs to happen in objective 9?
No, but I think that's a good idea. I think objective 9 would be a good place for metacognition. Well, I think thinking about diversity and how you learn and how your diversity can, the point of having a diversity objective, I think, is to change how people think about the world. So that is a good place for metacognition. It's a great idea.
I wonder about going back to our department's report of the screen reading, and like, my colleagues will want really actual.
Yes, and I want to give them that. So the question was, should we peg specific gen eds to specific durable skills to specific gen ed categories, right? And I think with communication, it's easy to peg that to 1 and 2. Mindfulness, 1. I think it goes well in objective 9 for diversity. I also think humanities, I was an English major, that's why we read literature, is to broaden our horizons and think about how we're learning. But I also think mindfulness can be everywhere, right? Because it's reflecting on your learning process, right? And how have you grown? And if you get into these like really, really small things, under mindfulness, it's humility, active listening, patience, empathy, hospitality. One is still blurry, I can't read it, but it says something about management. And so some of those are a little bit squishier. I don't know that it's my job to necessarily teach my students compassion and empathy in a way that I can measure on an assessment. I would like them all to be compassionate, empathetic people. I don't know what's my job.
Sure.
And I wish I had more concrete actionable steps, but I would say, the first thing is think about what we're already doing, and then go from there and see what we can add easily.
Mm-hmm. So this is my third question, Ed. So you talked about the fact that in some cases our assignments might not be designed for the current kind of world that our students are entering. And so maybe in some ways these durable skills are an opportunity to imagine totally new types of things.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wonder if maybe that's like something we can also.
Yes, I think that was great. So if we can rethink the assignments we use, I have really tried to move away from the standard essay for my classes, and even for our senior capstone class in political science, I give students the option of a big research paper for the ones who are thinking about grad school. And then I have what I call the fly writing, which is for people who are thinking about not going to grad school. And so instead of writing a research paper, they do the same amount of research on the topic, but they're writing an op-ed. They're writing a policy brief. They're writing some more targeted assignments, so that they can develop those skills. So I think rethinking the assessments we use or the assignments we use in class already is a great way to see how can I encourage more creativity, right? When I teach a summer class back home at Northeastern, and they have a research project, and then they have to translate it into public-facing document, right? And that can be an ad campaign, a podcast, a Twitter. I had a student, Precious, who did a TikTok trend, and she was like, I know you're old, so here's what these are referencing. Like, this is why this TikTok is funny. Because I have no idea what we're talking about. But she recorded like the political science information through a TikTok lens, right? That was super creative. So I think there's ways to build it in if we think about the assessments more intentionally. Yeah.
And Heather's had her.
Yes, Heather, sorry.
And for folks in the room, if you wouldn't mind, folks online are having a hard time hearing the questions, and so we could.
I'll try to rephrase the question. I tend to be very loud.
Okay, thanks. Maybe stepping back a couple places, because when I raised my hand a little while back, but when you were first talking about like some of these different durable skills and maybe how you would assess them, something like fortitude or creativity. So I use self-reflections a lot in my courses, and I think you can, rather than just having like a general self-reflection, you can give very targeted questions that are asking them about some of these different categories. So for example, like in one of my classes in the lab, do experiments that I most of the time are going to fail, and they like have to like struggle and figure it out, and we're modeling like real world science. And you know, some people really struggle with that, like not getting the answer right and not being able to do it right, and they have to over the semester like learn that that's okay. And so asking like very specific questions in their reflection about how they dealt with, you know, or how they grew in their understanding or their or ability to like be okay with their science failing and things like that can get at assessing some of these durable skills indirectly by letting them tell me how they're doing it in those areas.
No, I think that's great. And I kind sometimes like at the start of a class, I used to do, and I need to get back to doing it, sort of a pre-semester like work plan, and with students, it's like, what are you going to do if you struggle in this class, right? What are your actionable steps? And then tie that back to the reflection, like when you struggled, did you follow through on seeking things, and how did you overcome that struggle? I think those targeted reflection pieces are really great for the students' perceptions of their progress on these durable skills. And since most of these are pretty squishy anyway, I think that might be some of the best data we're gonna get, right? I don't know how you do a pre-test, post-test on fortitude, but thankfully I'm a qualitative researcher, so I don't really care. Quant, who cares? Math, dumb. Other questions, or do we want to start brainstorming or working together? Dan, is that a hand, or are you just touching your head? Okay.
Yeah. One of the things I'm not 100% on is in terms of the assessment piece. Is it like we're trying to get at what students think themselves of like, was I exposed to these and did I improve my mindfulness, etc.? Or is it assessment in terms of, I think they made this advancement because of this assignment, or like could I give a survey to my students beginning of the class, end of the class, to see like how do you did you think that we touched on these 10 things or 5 or whatever, right? And then how much did you advance or maybe fall behind on some of these? Or is it like me being like, oh, from the
That's a great question. And I think it's both. I think because a lot of this is designed for students to be able to articulate the skills we're giving them on their way out the door to the job market, so they can put in a cover letter, I have strong collaborative skills because of all of this group work that I did in my psychology classes. I think they need to be able to articulate that they've learned it and that they've improved it. But I also think we want some type of our own perspective, like are they actually doing it? Because I think if they're doing all this group work, but they're not actually collaborating, they're just parallel play group work, right? They think they're doing group work because they're all working independently and then putting the essay together at the end. I don't know if that's collaborative in the same way that I would want a team building kind of collaboration, right? So I do think it has to be both. But I think the key is, for me, one of the biggest things is how do we teach students to articulate that they have these skills? And I think that's where the intentionality of linking it to assignments comes from, and being able to document it. And I think for students, especially if the jobs require like a writing sample or something where they can show creativity and critical thinking and how they will know which type of assignment to submit for a writing sample, you know, and I think it's both.
Okay, but if we wanted to be like kind of like really quite mercenary about these assessments, could we just assign them like, please write a self-reflection about how you displayed fortitude in this class?
I mean, yeah, you could. I mean, I would think if it's a good, you get something from that.
You would, they'd be able to articulate it.
You know, I think if you said, hey, right, tell me how you improved your sense of fortitude, right? Or how did you develop your character, right? I think if you're gonna go that route, it might be more helpful to give them some more of the smaller examples, right? So fortitude breaks down right into persistence, self-confidence, self-discipline, assertiveness, tenacity, resilience, right? And I think thinking about assertiveness is one that's why I do a lot of class discussion and having students participate in those so that they can express their views. Like political science, we get a lot of questions and there's like a lot of debate going on. You know, there's open questions. A lot of political science can get passionate, right? And we think through that. And I think students teaching them to be able to assert themselves in a group discussion in a way that's professional and not like overpowering, right? But I think we break down fortitude, because if I ask a student about fortitude, I don't think they're gonna know what to talk about.
Sure.
Right, but if I broke it down to these smaller examples of what constitutes fortitude, I think it might be better. Follow up?
So I wonder if something, maybe Gert can like give us some guidance, like of the smaller terms associated to everything, maybe there's a couple that are like particularly apt for like university classes, you know? And like maybe those can be highlighted to faculty instead of fortitude, which is like such a big kind of nebulous concept. I think you're right, assertiveness is something I think professors would be able to in a more clear way. And so I wonder if this would be highlighted for our benefit.
I think that's a good idea. Yeah, I think, and Gert is as the chair of Gert, I'm happy to work with anyone as they're developing these assessments. That's why they give me a course release, so I have time to do things. So I'm happy to work with people. But I do think, yeah, I can make this wheel available on the Gert website for people so they can look at this and think about how to develop this. Because I do think these big buckets get a little abstract. Like mindfulness is hard for me to conceptualize. Because when I think mindfulness, I'm thinking like, are we all doing yoga in the middle of poli-sci class? And like, centering ourselves before we have a debate, I don't know. But that's, you're looking at other things, right? You know, collaboration or communication, right? Like the social media is one of those. Like that's a huge skill that employers want. Can you do social media, right? And if we have students, we do assignments where they explain complex political science topics or history or psychology in, you know, tweet form. Well, we don't call them tweets anymore. Whatever we call them on X now, which we don't use, but Blue Sky, skeets, you know, or TikToks or whatever the kids are using these days. I'm not hip anymore, right? But again, making the assignments help them develop that skill so they can then see it and say, I can do that job. I developed that skill. Because I think a lot of this, again, is just translating it for students. You know, I think most of us are doing at least some of these already, if not most of them in some fashion. Whether we know we're doing it and whether we're doing it intentionally, separate questions. And whether the students know, I think is the other like big question, right? Because I don't know that my students, they know I'm developing their critical thinking because I say that all the time, right? I don't know if they know that I'm necessarily trying to do growth mindset, right? Strategic planning, goal-oriented, self-sufficiency, results-focused. Not how I would interpret growth mindset personally, but like being open to new perspectives that goes kind of into the metacognition and these other things. But like, how do we develop those things in ways that students can articulate it? Because I want my students to have jobs. Because jobs are good, I guess. We live in a capitalist society, so as I tell my dog every morning when he distracts me from work, one of us has to earn a paycheck, and it's not you. So, other questions, other thoughts?
Maybe this is something I missed at the beginning, because I know I came in a little late. The letter that originally was sent out about this, Yeah, reflected, this would impact objectives 1 through 6.
So technically the state is the one that changed it, and they control 1 through 6. But because I believe in equity and equality, I'm making 7, 8, and 9 do it too.
Okay. That's news to my college, so I would pass that information on.
Yeah, we have to do it for 1 through 6. I would like to see it for 7, 8, and 9 too, because I do think some of these might be better suited for the diversity objective, and that way we're making sure the students are hitting as many of these as we can, and that we're thinking about it. And that way, when we do gen ed assessment, we have the same kind of starting point. And for the gen ed teaching awards that we get here on campus, and then we forward 1 through 6 off to the state for the statewide competition, the part of the statewide assessment, like rubric, is durable skills and how you articulate those durable skills in your teaching. And so if we're using the same rubric for all of them, 7, 8, 9 need to start thinking about it, whether they build it into their assessment plans as quickly as others. Believe me, I don't want everybody to update their assessment plan this academic year as much as I said that in my letter, so not everyone would, because that would be a lot of them for us to look at. But we're definitely pushing as we go forward, asking more people to think about it. Oh, yeah.
I couldn't find my hand raising button. So are you going to be looking for ways to assess this in our gen ed classes? So it's one thing to look at our syllabi, right? Are we now trying to incorporate and communicate to our students the durable skills that they will get in the classroom? But then, is GERC wanting to in some way try to assess how the students are perceiving that, or if they are like being impacted in some way by, or like their understanding of the durable skills that they are developing in those classes? Is this something that we need to be thinking about, like how to get that information from our students?
So currently, because this is new and we have received no guidance from the state other than relevant durable skills, what we did in developing the new assessment template is we put just like a table with all 10 of these and a check if you do this, and then just tell me how you do it. So it's pretty not rigorous at this point. But it's just getting people to think about it. So like if you do reflections, you can check mindfulness, or metacognition, we do reflections, right? Or I have a lot of group projects, so collaboration, check, we do group projects. So we're just looking to see what we're already doing and how we're hitting those concepts. Because I do think these are harder to assess than although that said, most of the state board learning outcomes are terribly written and hard to assess anyway, so that's a separate problem, but I can only solve so many things at once. So right now we're kind of just doing it a little squishier. So hopefully just to get people thinking. Yeah.
I do have a question, and maybe this is more of a GERD question, but every instructor has their academic freedom, right?
Yes.
So they can teach the class how they want, right? But I can imagine that out of 5 to 10 instructors, one of them might include more collaborative activities in the same section, right?
The same course number.
But when we check the box, right? I don't know, I certainly want to encourage as many of these durable skills in all the sections, right? Mm-hmm. But every instructor is going to approach the class differently, right? So
yes, and this is one of those challenges where I totally love and respect academic freedom, but I also like standards, and that's the tension, right? Because even now, when I started here, I was given a gen ed to teach, Introduction to American Politics. I had never seen our assessment plan in the first 5 years of teaching that class. I didn't see the assessment plan until I was on GERC. And I was like, wait, we have an assessment plan? And then I looked at it and it was terrible, so I'm kind of glad I didn't see it. departments are already kind of dropping the ball on communicating what's supposed to happen. At least my department is. I don't know if that's widespread. So there should be some academic freedom in how you execute the things, but if the course is going to count for GERC, we can also say it has to hit some of these things. How you choose to hit them, it doesn't matter. So for the durable skills, I think you're totally right. Like some faculty are great at doing collaborative group projects and group work, and others are not. They don't want to teach that way. They don't like to teach that way. They're less active learning. I think we could all improve our teaching, but I'm not going to mandate everybody must do group assignments in every class. So to answer your question, yes, academic freedom is important. I would say check the boxes for the ones that are kind of built into the inherent structure of the course that are less likely to change from instructor to instructor, and then we'll know that more of them are being hit because of different teaching styles and different teaching approaches. Because like I do a lot more collaboration now than I used to, but I don't know if all of my faculty in my department are doing that. Right, like now instead of doing big group discussions, I spend the first 10 minutes of class they spend in small group discussions, trying to come together to an understanding of the key takeaways to then bring back to the full group. So they're doing communication and collaboration, and there's also some good research that helps with inclusivity, so students who are less confident can kind of test out their ideas in a smaller group first, so there's some good pedagogical reasons for that. I don't know if everybody's doing that, and I wouldn't expect everybody to do it that way. So, this is all very squishy, is my general answer to most things. We want to see it, or figure out how we get there. We're all in this durable skills boat together, and we have no map.
I just thought I'd share, first of all, Mona shared with me a while ago, I'm in psychology, so we have 11 sections of intro that we're trying to get the same durable skills, right? So first of all, we met together, most of the instructors, and just said, okay, which of these do we think we're all tapping? And then those are the ones that we're going to try and focus on, at least at this point, until we get direction to tell us to do something different. But then also from the Society of Teaching of Psychology, there's a transferable skills assessment paper that they've written. And it just is like, hey, you could ask this, hey, you could ask that. And the skills aren't exactly the same, but they're very, very similar. Yeah. So if someone's like, have no idea how to do this, it is more a self-reflection aspect that the students, so our current plan is at the end of the semester to just kind of ask some of these, do you feel like you developed this? You know, on a scale of like 0 to 5, I think is what it is. We haven't ironed it out exactly, but just kind of choosing of the ones that the instructors feel like, we all feel like we're teaching this some week, because we have anywhere from 20, I think 25 is our smallest class, I have 150. We can't implement the same exact assignments, right? Me grading 150, 5-page essays is not feasible, but someone can grade 30. So we can't do all exactly the same assignments because we have different sizes. But that gives us something that we can all at least focus on, at least these base ones, and then if someone wants to do more, that's great.
Yeah, I think that's a good starting point too, especially like for political science, there's only 1 or 2 sections of American politics, and like if it's comparative or international relations, there's one a semester, right? So it's a lot easier to harmonize when you only have 2 people teaching it and only one of them is doing it at the time, every section, easier to do. 11 with varying sizes like that, it's gonna be really hard. And so we don't expect the same thing, but as long as the same as we're assessing, especially for the gen ed objective, are you hitting what the objective says you have to hit in the terrible language that the State Board of Education has given us? Because I'm really sorry, and I know this is getting recorded and I don't really care, but the learning outcomes from the state are just terribly phrased. When I taught the political science pedagogy class, I put them up and I was like, what does this mean? And my students were like, oh, right, because they're so generic and hard to think about, and I don't know, but that's just me editorializing, as I tend to do. But yeah, so I think there's flexibility in how we approach the durable skills from a GERC standpoint. And from GERC's perspective, I just want to see that we're doing something, that we're trying. From a general taking off my GERC hat and just putting on my faculty hat, I want us to make sure we can communicate to the students why we have them do what we do, right? Because I think a lot of students don't even know why we have them do gen eds, right? Articulating the value of a gen ed class would go a long way. Like, you know, we actually just getting my generals out of the way. I don't care, blah, 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 right? Gen Ed often gets dismissed from the students because they want to head straight into their major and just focus on the exciting stuff, and I totally get that. But I think we can start articulating how Gen Ed lays a foundation for durable, transferable job skills. The students will see the value of Gen Ed better, which will also help our teaching evaluations, because if the students understand why we're having them do something, they tend to enjoy it more and see the relevance of it more. But also just increase the program's value to students. And then when they hit our majors and our major classes, they'll know that they already have some of these skills that they can then build on moving further, right? Like, I'm not expecting a Psych 100 to assess these things the same way that like a 4,000 level Psych class would, right? You know, but I think for me, the key is, and this is because my students, and this is a failure on my own part, I did not clearly articulate to my students what they were actually learning, right? Like, yes, I'm teaching you constitutional law, right? But as we've all seen, the Supreme Court can change that whenever they want, right? So I don't want you to remember the law. I want you to remember the process of the law, right? And how to think about the law. And so I tell them that part, but then I don't necessarily make the jump to, so that you can then think about critically about whatever you do for your career down the line and be able to pivot, right? And understand how outcomes can shift depending on values that go into the decision-making process. Like, the Supreme Court is mostly values-based, and how we think about that. There's, you know, one of my favorite podcasts is, you know, law just vibes, right? So to know how to figure out the vibe and then interpret that going forward, and that's a skill. And that's a skill that they can take with them wherever they go. Whereas remembering what the Commerce Clause means, I don't know, they're going to change it again. One way you look thoughtful.
Yeah, no, this is great. So many thoughts. One, I'm wondering if, like, at the department level, when we're reporting to GERG, right? Like, I'm almost wondering if we should also be grouping based on things like modality, right? Because some things, like collaboration in asynchronous online classes, it's not impossible, but it's messier, and it's very different than if you have it in person, right? But I don't know, would that be helpful to kind of have clusters like that? Or?
So that is actually one of the things GERG is thinking about changing for the assessment reporting process. Is right now you lump all of the sections together and give us a single report, and we actually want to break out and disaggregate the data, because I think the data is way more useful disaggregated, and I don't know whose decision it was to aggregate it. It was before I got here. But like, I want to know, are the students in the asynchronous online classes learning and achieving as well as the students in the in-person section, the students in an ECP section, the students in a hybrid section? You know, are there differences? Because I suspect that there are. And then if we have that disaggregated data, then we can actually do interventions to improve whatever modality needs a little bit of an uplift, right? You know, so I hear, some people say, depending on which ECP teacher people had, they come in with different levels of preparation into the majors. And that's, I mean, that's true of our own faculty too. It's not limited to ECP. But if there's a consistent problem with the ECP data, right, we can intervene, do more professional development for the ECP teachers. If there's something with the online asynchronous classes, we can say, hey, let's set up some time with the ITRC and look through the best practices for online learning and make those interventions. So we do want the data disaggregated. I don't know if we updated that for this year's reporting cycle, but we want that going forward.
But, and it's sorry, and I should know this better, but is it clear like which categories or like what the disaggregation is going to look like?
We will most likely, I think right now we are asking for it to be disaggregated by modality. So online, asynchronous, in-person, which I don't know if there's any pure in-person or if everybody has Zoom sections now, but if there's Zoom sections, if there's a way to, and that would be harder to disaggregate, because I know my Zoom students do not do as well as my in-seat students, because they're out shopping and running their errands and just have their cameras off. That's a larger problem that I can't really control. But I think that like online asynchronous, in-person, live, online, ECP are currently the buckets we're thinking about, but if other people have other suggestions, happy to incorporate those. I like when GERK is collaborative. We don't want to be seen as imposing dictates on everybody, even though we do. We want you all to think you have input.
No, that's helpful too, because then, like at the departmental level, we can also talk about like, do we want slightly different skills that we want to focus on for like, some modalities might be.
Yeah, because like an asynchronous online class is going to definitely have more self-starter, or you have to self-pace yourself. You have to motivate yourself in ways that you don't have necessarily the accountability of an in-person person staring at you like, right? I think it's easier to kind of fall behind in an asynchronous class because you have to find your own motivation to do the readings and to do the discussion boards and to go engage on or whatever people are having their students do. So I think there's definitely some room for variety.
For the purposes of GERK collaboration, what should we be looking for opportunities to share with GERK?
I mean, anything that you think we can do to improve any of the GERK processes and procedures. I've been working to try to streamline forms and submissions. We are in a little bit of a changing, our admin from last year who helped streamline a lot of our processes has a new job now. So we're relearning a lot of those with our new admin who I think is great, but is spread very, very thin. I think she's probably doing the job of like 5 people. And so GERK's a little behind. So we do apologize on that. But anything, we're actually sending out a survey in the next, the link will come out in the next notes from academic affairs for faculty to fill out that asks about the Gen Ed program. Open for suggestions, comments, concerns. One thing I've been trying to get started off the ground is my idea of Gen Ed clusters where you have classes across multiple objectives, look at the same issue. So like sustainability from a historical standpoint, the psychology behind why people recycle or don't recycle, whatever you want to like throw that all together so that students can kind of see those connections and why the Gen Ed program exists and how there's different lenses lead to different questions and analyses. So it asks if the survey asks if there's interest in that and then like what topics people would be interested in. We have control over objectives 7, 8, and 9. So if you think we need to change those or update those, we can do that at the institutional level. Except I don't want to do anything to touch the diversity one because I don't want the state to remember it's there. Delete that from the recording. But yeah, so I think as we think about what GERK can do, and like if you need me to, I mean like these are messy and the state's given me nothing to work with, so I'm trying to pull it together in a way that I think is useful. If you got thoughts on how to do this, stick them in this, and reach out. And I'm always available for thoughts, conversations, if you have questions, or if you are curious about proposing a new GERK course, happy to meet with people to talk you through that process, what GERK's looking for when we think about new courses. And mostly our attention goes mostly to the assessment plan, so making sure your assessment plan can sail through somewhat efficiently. But yeah, we're open to everything. Yeah.
Should we plan to have, so next year's reporting, we want durable skills probably written by next year's report, because then we need to be assessing it right now, right? I mean, at least in this.
So right now, because it's not on your assessment plan, do your assessment plan. But we are asking people to update their assessment plans. So once you get the update approved, then you can focus on collecting that data. So submit your assessment plan updates whenever you feel like it, ideally by the end of the year. That will have the durable skills checkbox on it. And then if you can collect that data, great. But obviously when you're changing an assessment plan, we know there's gonna be a lag in what data you collect, because if it gets approved next semester, you didn't collect the data from this semester. So there will be a transition period where we're not gonna ungen ed you if you don't collect it. I'm not even sure I can ungen ed people. But like we do want to see it there. And we also want people to update their assessment plans because some of them are really old and really bad. Like poli-sci's, our one for American government would not pass GERC approval if it were submitted now. And some of them are just very, very old. So that's going to be another part of the multi-year cycle, is asking people if they've reviewed their assessment plan for any necessary updates.
We have a question on Zoom. Ariel wants to know, for the GERC assessments, do you recommend we focus on a certain number of the durable skills, like incorporate assessment of 5 of the 10 or something?
I do not, because it's going to vary depending on the course and the objective. So I think do whatever makes sense for your course, and we'll go from there. If your course truly hits 0, I'm going to be a little bit, interesting, Matt. Why does your course exist then? But I think everybody's going to hit at least 1, probably 3. Would be pretty easy, because I think it's easy to hit communication and critical thinking, and then something else.
So the gen ed course that I'm connected with is the LLIB Level 15 Introduction to Information Research. It's information literacy, right? But so we definitely do a lot of critical thinking, and I think it would make a lot of sense to do metacognition, because we're like, how did you search? Where did you search? What do you think about the results and that kind of thing, right? But like for creativity, is this too much of a stretch if we say something like, well, we spend a lot of time teaching students how to develop a good research question, right? And it requires some brainstorming. It requires some, get out there and explore the possibilities, do some browsing and stuff. So that's creativity, right?
Research questions often require some creativity. And I would also suggest you could also probably hit fortitude, because most people are going to screw up citation formats the first time around, and find bad sources and have to overcome that discouragement and being like, oh, this isn't a reliable source.
And the research process just takes a lot of time, and there's a lot of failure.
Exactly. Yeah, I went down this dead end trying this doesn't make this series of articles that didn't pan out the way I thought they would. So yeah, I think, again, I think all of this is here in most of our classes, just the varying levels. It's just finding it and articulating it in a more intentional and positive way. Like it's there, how do we highlight it? How do we tell students that part of this is the struggle? Like the struggle is a learning element, right? Because students want to get it right the first time. They don't like the struggle. At least my students don't like the struggle in comm law. They're always terrified of the case briefs, right? I'm like, no, the struggle is part of it, because that's how we learn. We learn by overcoming, by trying again, by not giving up the first time, right? We're developing these skills, fortitude and growth mindset particularly, right? If the students have to overcome struggle. All right, well, in the last 5 minutes of class, find a partner and review yourself. So I wanted to do more work. This was great. The questions were awesome. I think this was really helpful. I would love to sit down with people and look at syllabi in the future. If we can organize the actual workshop part at some point, you can figure that out through the center. But I do think there's opportunity to collaborate and collaboratively develop these durable skills and ways to think about. Because sometimes having someone else look at what you're already doing can help you see the things you're looking, right? That's why we have peer review, that's why we run things by our colleagues. So I think there's definitely some value in coming back and doing that workshop part together. So I'd be happy to come back and facilitate that down the line if someone can schedule it for me. Thank you, Doug. Oh, question or?
Yeah, question for you. Do you anticipate, and I know you don't know the answer, but anticipate, we are already given our competencies as a gen ed class, right? So they give me what the objective competencies are, and then the psychology competencies were assigned to me. Do you anticipate that they'll change those to incorporate durable skills? Do you think that's just stuck, and then we'll add also, and in addition?
So the state board language just says relevant durable skills in the policy, and I don't think they're going to change that, and we're not going to mandate specific ones as of right now. So I think it's just figure out what's relevant and do that. Unless you're a lab science, in which case you figure out what's appropriate. Because lab sciences have to do appropriate durable skills, not relevant durable skills. Non-lab sciences, it's still relevant. I don't know why they changed the word in that one example. It was very confusing to me.
Yes.
Have fun with it. Be creative. Well, thank you so much for listening to me prattle on about durable skills for an hour. If you have more questions either about this or about Girk, you know where to find me. And hiding in Gravely Hall, or at girkmail.icu. Whatever my email address is. People know how to find me. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.